The Wife is First. Volume 1, Planning Ahead. Chapter 22, Farce. Since this issue involved the personal maidservants, the problem had become much more serious than just a concubine using a trick to gain favor. Jing Shao looked coldly at concubine Li, who was kneeling on the ground. After the male wife crossed the threshold, the first son born from the concubine would only be an illegitimate eldest son of a concubine. However, even if he wouldn't be eligible to inherit the title, he could still inherit a majority of the family property, so it was no wonder that the concubines would be anxious. However, they seemed to have forgotten that this type of aphrodisiac would not only affect Prince Cheng but was also as effective against this male main consort. Thinking about this point, Jing Shao secretly felt slightly delighted. Duo Fu Gong Gong, according to the rules of the estate, what should be done about this? Mu Hanjiang sat down next to Jing Shao, thinking in his heart that the concubines of this estate were really daring. This kind of thing was not something you would often see in the Marquis of Beiwei's residence. Responding to Your Highness, for concubines secretly trying to use aphrodisiacs, their punishment should be, to be beaten to death with the rod. Duo Fu wrinkled his bun-like face and replied honestly. This rule was also one that had been set by the secondary consort. Originally, it was just getting sent to the temple to become a nun. Your Highness, it really was not this slave. This slave has been serving His Highness for 5 years and has never used this kind of means. Concubine Li immediately began to shriek after hearing that the punishment was to be beaten to death. Irritated with concubine Li's wailing, Jing Shao frowned and waved his hand, then ordered, "Drag her out." Wait. Mu Hanjiang stopped the imperial guards who was about to drag her out and slowly walked in front of concubine Li. He didn't even look at the woman kneeling on the floor and just coldly swept his eyes around the circle of servants. Concubine Li has been with His Highness for many years and has numerous connections within this household. As far as this main consort knew, over half of the maidservants in the East Courtyard alone are on good terms with concubine Li. The implication was that she wouldn't be able to shed responsibility on this no matter what. This was the first time that Mu Hanjiang referred to himself as the main consort. The gentle and sweet-sounding voice brought a sense of languidness to the circumstances, yet at the same time, it caused people to tremble with fear. In order to investigate this matter, Duo Fu had assembled all the people in the estate. All the maidservants serving in the East Courtyard were all present. Upon hearing this, they knelt down one by one, not daring to say anything. Those who weren't familiar with concubine Li inwardly rejoiced, while those who were on good terms with her were restless. Whereas, the ones who had received benefits from her were all covered in cold sweat. Concubine Li had never thought that this matter would become as serious as this, and that the prince whom she had been serving for so many years would not remember their old affection at all. She was very frightened and trembled all over as she kowtowed. This slave knows her wrong, and this slave was blinded by her greed. This was all the idea of the secondary consort. Your Highness, please have mercy and spare this slave's life. Concubine Li could only react this way now. The secondary consort just wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. If this plan worked, then she could let the people in the estate know that there were no special feelings between His Highness and his prince consort. If it didn't work, then she would be able to seize the opportunity to eliminate this irksome concubine. How had concubine Li not realized this when Song Lingzin had urged her to do this? That cheap woman! Jing Shao coldly snorted, ferociously throwing down the teacup in his hand. The entire thing broke in front of concubine Li. Then Jing Shao ordered, "Go bring Song Lingzin here." Duo Fu hurriedly called 2 maidservants to go to the West Courtyard and bring over the secondary consort who had recently been forbidden to leave her quarters. Even if this was the secondary consort's idea, the person who dared to slip in the drug is still concubine Li. Mu Hanjiang continued to analyze the situation with a cold face. This kind of thing absolutely could not be rashly exposed. The entire inner courtyard of the prince estate now seemed problematic. Today they dared to slip in an aphrodisiac, tomorrow they would dare to slip in poison. Since Jing Shao let him manage the inner court, then he would give him a safe and worry-free home. Concubine Li wanted to defend herself. She raised her head and made eye contact with Mu Hanzhang's, who seemed to be able to see through everything. She opened her mouth, but she couldn't refute the statement. She instinctively felt that if she didn't speak the truth now, it would only become worse, but also felt that even if she did speak the truth, it would still end in the same way, someone's death. If Concubine Li can tell us how this drug got into His Highness soup, then this main consort will spare your life. Mu Hanzhang turned around and sat next to Jing Shao again. Concubine Li uncertainly looked up towards the two people sitting in those seats. Mu Hanzhang noticed that she did not believe him, and so he turned to look at Jing Shao. Jing Shao responded to him with a slight smile and said, "For the matters of the inner courtyard, you are in charge." Concubine Li seemed reassured after hearing this sentence. With a trembling hand, she pointed to one of the people in the crowd, towards Meng Shi. "Your Highness, that's not true. It was not the slave who did it. This slave has never been put in charge of the food." Meng Shi, who was listening in, was already covered in cold sweat. Seeing that she had been pointed out, she felt her whole body became weak as she moved from her kneeling position to crawl a few steps forward. On the second day after Mu Hanzhang married in, he assigned the tasks for the servants in the east courtyard. Making the tea and pouring of water was left to Meng Shi, lighting and snuffing out candles as well as making the bed was for Miao Shi, food was Ji Shi's duty, while Lan Ting and Lan Xian were responsible for sweeping and washing. With Meng Shi saying this, it was implicating that the one who did it was Ji Shi. Ji Shi had remained silent all this while as she was thinking of how they had been like sisters with them all living in the same room. She was not in the position to help her, but she also didn't want to throw rocks at a person who was already down. However, now it seemed that this person was acting like this despite of their previous mutual feelings. It was no use for her to take pity on her, so she walked forward a few steps and kowtowed to Mu Hanzhang and said, "Today, this slave was negligent. Miao Shi was not feeling well today." After the servant had placed down the meal, the prince consort was still in the small study room. "This slave had Meng Shi fetch you," yet she said that the prince consort was unhappy with her. This slave didn't think too much about it and had Meng Shi stay behind to watch the food. It was all because of this slave's negligence that such a thing happened, asking for His Highness punishment. Hearing this, Meng Shi couldn't help but start to scream, raining curses on Ji Shi and almost spitting blood. Ji Shi acted indifferent towards her and refused to respond. Meng Shi had a loose mouth and it was always her who sent news to the west courtyard. Because it didn't result into a huge problem before, he hadn't cared much about it. Mu Hanzhang's eyes lowered, things had already become very clear. As for where the drug came from, it was fine to check that fact later after this was dealt with. He picked up the cup on the table and after taking an unhurried sip, he slowly said, "Drag Meng Shi out, flog her to death. No. Please spare this slave's life. Your Highness. Your Highness. This slave has served Your Highness for so many years. Your Highness." Meng Shi struggled as she was dragged out, and not long after, scream after blood-curdling scream could be heard from the courtyard. Song Lingzin had rushed to the east courtyard. After seeing this scene, she could not help but turned pale. Ignoring the cries from the courtyard, Mu Hanzhang just calmly drank his tea. Upon seeing Jun Qing like this, Jing Shao could only think that his imposing manner when deciding the execution of someone was so beautiful that it could not be replicated. Mu Hanzhang felt his husband gaze from next to him and felt a little worried in his heart. Would Jing Shao think that he was cruel and cold-blooded? He quietly tightened his grasp on his sleeves, then slowly turned his head to look directly into a pair of gentle and beautiful eyes that were full of admiration. He could not help but feel relieved. How did he forget? This person had killed countless people on the battlefield, how would he not understand his actions? Seeing that Lady Song had arrived, Mu Hanzhang put down his cup again and slowly swept his gaze around the entire circle of people before he stood up and said, Since you have entered the estate as servants, you must meticulously abide by the duties of your role. His Highness is benevolent and has never severely treated his servants, but that doesn't mean you are free to do whatever you want. This slave doesn't dare. One by one, they all knelt down, their sweaty foreheads revealing their fear. Tonight, everyone will go into the courtyard and stand there for 2 hours to take a good look. If in the future, there is anyone here who dares to commit such an offense against your masters, then have a look at where you will end up. Mu Hanzhong finished saying his piece but did not give anyone leave to rise yet. His eyes moved to the already weak with fear concubine Li on the floor and continued, Duo Fu Gong Gong, make arrangement to send concubine Li to the nunnery tomorrow. Have her cover her hair to begin devoting herself to Daoism. As your Highness commands. Duo Fu, as the only person still standing, hurriedly bowed and acknowledged the command. Upon hearing this, Song Lingzin inwardly relaxed a little. She assumed that she was called her under the accusation that she had instigated concubine Li to do this. However, that was something that no one could really prove. Upon looking at the current situation, she was probably called over her just to see what kind of reaction she would have. That was indeed the case. Mu Hanzhong did not have any evidence against her. He turned his gaze towards Jing Shao and asked with his eyes what he meant to do by fetching her here. Jing Shao wrinkled his brow. Now that he was looking at all these concubines of his, he thought that they were such eyesores. In these past few days, he had been acting passive in court only for his efforts to be wasted by this loudmouthed secondary consort and her father who liked to act on his own. He couldn't help but coldly snored, Lady Song has sown discord within the household and passed on information outside of the estate without permission. This imperial prince will ask for an imperial decree tomorrow and demote her to a third-rank concubine. Ignoring the wailing and screeching of Song Lingzin, Jing Shao stood up upon feeling the beginnings of a headache. These women in the inner courtyard, there was not one who did not cause trouble. If he wanted to live a few more years in this life, he had to stay away from these scourges. Lifting his eyes, he looked at his wife who was wearing white robes. After seeing his wife's handsome, yet gentle and serene face, he suddenly felt that reality became obscured by some veil, making Mu Hanzhong seem almost like an ethereal illusion. He couldn't help but reach out to gather him into his arms as he waved his hand to have Duo Fu take everyone into the courtyard to have a look at Meng Shi so that they could reflect. Then, he took his wife with him and went back to the bedroom. From that day on, Mu Hanzhang's unshakable position in the estate as Prince Cheng's principal wife was established. In the next few months, Mu Hanzhang managed to step by step put the previously chaotic household into a proper order. In his last life, someone had told Jing Shao that his estate was like a dragon's pond and a tiger's den. But now, under Mu Hanzhang's management, it finally turned into a home where one could rest peacefully. Meanwhile, in the court hall, Emperor Hongzheng had still not expressed his decision regarding the issue of sending a punitive expedition against the southern barbarians, though they had been arguing about it for many days now. When Jing Shao was in the Ministry of War for roll call, he quietly leaked out that this would be a good opportunity to build merit, and that he himself really wanted to strive for it. Meanwhile, Jing Chen had people pass on the news that the eldest prince and the third prince wanted to lead the troops to the still confined fourth prince. The courtiers were quarreling endlessly in every direction, but the three princes who were still standing up in front stayed taciturn, not speaking at all. If a prince lead this expedition, it is indeed useful for appeasing the popular sentiment and putting the barbarians in their place. Emperor Hongzheng swept his eyes over his three sons below the dais. The eldest prince bowed his head, hiding his expression. The second prince's expression was calm and steady. Prince Chen was frowning, some impatience showing through his face. Amongst you three, who is willing to go? Emperor Hongzheng thought of the Empress's words last night. In his heart he was somewhat fed up. She had said something like, the third prince is arrogant and obstinate, though he may have performed great services, it is easy for him to start developing greedy intentions. The eldest prince was born from a woman of a lowly family, the second prince is just a scholar, yet the fourth prince hasn't had a chance to show his military achievements, though he is the son of the main wife. In this whole world, there weren't any parents who thought that their own son was bad. Emperor Hongzheng, as a monarch, could discipline his own sons however he wished, yet he won't tolerate other people saying a single sentence against them. This prince is willing to go. The eldest prince declared upon hearing the emperor's words and immediately stepped out of the ranks to reply. Everyone immediately focused their attention over there while Jing Chen remained expressionless and Jing Shao didn't move. Jing Shao, why are you unwilling to go? Emperor Hongzheng frowned. Didn't this boy said that this was a good opportunity for meritorious service the other day? Responding to imperial father, this prince encountered a Jianghu deist the previous day and he performed a divination for this one. He said that it is inadvisable for me to lead troops within the next 3 months, and if I were to go into this battle, defeat is ensured. Jing Shao declared this with a solemn face. This prince cannot diminish the prestige of our great country by greedily desiring the honor of a meritorious deed. What a bunch of nonsense. Emperor Hongzheng suddenly slammed his hand down on the arm of the imperial throne. Jing Shao hurriedly knelt down and said, "This prince was ignorant. Imperial father, please quell your anger." Emperor Hongzheng was so angry that even his beard puffed up as he said, "Since you know your own ignorance, you will go back and copy the art of war 10 times. You can't return to court until you've finished it. As His Majesty commands." Jing Shao kowtowed, receiving the punishment. All the officials raised their eyebrows one by one. This Prince Cheng was really someone who upon seeing a broken pot was thrown, would break it all the way. He Zhen's decree, the eldest Prince Jingrong will lead troops to eliminate the southern barbarians. He will set out in 3 days. Emperor Hongzheng issued the order as he glared at Jing Shao, who was still kneeling, one more time before he flung his sleeves and left. Taking no notice of the officials who was whispering behind him, Jing Shao hung his head dejectedly and walked out of the imperial palace. As soon as he got back to his residence, he listlessly went and burrowed himself into his wife's embrace. What happened? Mu Hanzhong put down the account book in his hands and patted his husband, who was rubbing improperly against him, in his arms. "Jun Qing, I was punished by my imperial father and can't go to court for a while." Jing Shao pushed his face into the other's chest and continued, "Let's go to the summer villa for the meanwhile. There are hot springs there, so we don't have to bathe in that small bathtub every day." Mu Hanzhong looked helplessly at his husband, who was covertly pulling apart the lapels of his clothing. Were the hot springs at the summer residence what he should really be talking about? End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 1, Planning Ahead. Chapter 23, Temple Fair. There are still so much to do within the estate. Moreover, what does imperial father-in-law punishing you with? Wouldn't it cause people to denounce you? Mu Hanzhong sighed, slightly pushing away the person at his bosom to once again picked up the account book to look at. Jing Shao let the strength of that push guide him along, falling on the soft divan. Imperial father is making me copy the art of war 10 times. Even if I write fast, it will still take at least a month to finish it. We can't just be shut indoors at home for the whole time, right? Mu Hanzhong glanced at him, then pretended as if he hadn't heard him. He put the account book he had examined to the side, then took another book with the names of all the people in the residence to look at and said, "There's something I would like to ask your opinion on." Although the matter of concubinely putting aphrodisiacs in their soup had been resolved, there was still the matter of where the drug had come from. Today, Mu Hanzhong finally found something. Each of the servants who had taken part in this had circles around their names one by one in the book. It was just that there was one person who was rather peculiar. Concubine Yan. Upon hearing this name, Jing Shao couldn't help but frown. First, keep this matter quiet. Wait for 3 days until the eldest prince has left for the expedition and then deal with it. Concubine Lu Yan was sent by the eldest prince. Jing Shao clearly knew that she was a problem, but since she was given by the eldest prince who will be leaving for a military expedition very soon, it would be best to deal with this concubine once he was gone, otherwise, it may cause unnecessary gossip. I have an idea. Mu Hanzhong smoothed his lips, then glanced at Jing Shao and said with some hesitation, "Does His Highness truly hasn't ever touched her?" Jing Shao sat up and awkwardly rubbed his nose. "Why would I lie to you about this kind of thing? What this one suggests is that since the fourth prince's house confinement will end next month, as an elder brother, your highness must naturally send a congratulatory gift." Mu Hanzhong lowered his eyes and spoke slowly. Jing Shao's eyes brightened and clarified, "You meant we should send her to Jing Yu. For concubines below the third rank, they could be sent as gifts to others. Since the eldest prince had sent a person who would cause disaster to his side, he could absolutely send this disaster to another person. Although during these years, the eldest prince and the fourth prince were quite close, their faces and their hearts were not in agreement. Being able to have such a readily available source of information, he didn't believe that the eldest prince would not use it. Passing on this source of calamity to another who deserved it, was truly a beautiful move. "Jun Qing, you are too smart." Jing Shao excitedly moved towards his wife and gathered him in his arms to kiss him a few times. "Your Highness." Mu Hanzhong pushed him away with his ears flushing a shade of pink. He was just discussing some proper business. Why couldn't this husband of his behave himself? As the couple discussed, all the servants who participated in obtaining the aphrodisiac would be punished. They would leave concubine Yan Bi until the middle of the third month, when the fourth prince would be released from his confinement, and then, they would send her to him as a congratulatory gift. After lunch, Jing Shao hugged his wife and satisfactorily rested with an afternoon nap. Then he followed him to the small study. One dealt with the responsibilities of the inner household and the other copied the military book. The art of war dated all the way back to when the country was just founded. 4 scholars had compiled military strategies and tactics, picking and gathering the best of strategies over thousands of years and putting them all in one collection. They truly were good books. It's just that Jing Shao looked at the complete set of books, which was half a chi tall, and his face couldn't help but formed a bitter expression. He feared that even with a month's time, he wouldn't be able to finish copying this for 10 times. Mu Hanzhong glanced at his husband, who was sprawled on the desk and had stopped moving after copying only 3 pages. He pushed the tea that Miao Shi had just steeped towards him and said, "The matters in the residence had been pretty much all been taken care of these past few days. On the 3rd day of the 4th month there is a temple fair. We'll go and have a stroll there. On the way I'll accompany you to stay at the summer villa for a couple of days. After the 1st day of the 4th month, when the monthly allowance of silver was distributed, and the 2nd day, when he would be picking new maidservants and manservants to enter the estates, there basically would not be any other major duties that needed his personal attention." Upon hearing this, Jing Shao immediately became happy. He drank a mouthful of tea and began to copy again, but soon after he was unable to sit still anymore. "I'm going to train with my swords and then copy more afterwards." After saying this, he threw down the brush and went out. Mu Hanzhong laughed lightly as he shook his head. Nobody understood a son better than his father. The emperor punishing Jing Shao to copy books, was him knowing that he didn't like to do calligraphy and wouldn't be able to sit still for long. He took the scroll where the copies were being written on and gazed at the page full of bold and powerfully written characters for a short period of time. Then he took up the brush to continue where his husband had left off. When Jing Shao came back, he discovered that the book he had originally only copied 5 pages of had turned into 30 or so pages. What was even more surprising was that the calligraphy looked exactly like his own. "Jun Qing, did you wrote this?" Jing Shao grabbed the book and found his wife, who was sitting at the dining table ladling out soup. Mu Hanzhong nodded slightly and said, "When I was young, I used to do the assignments of my elder brother and 2 cousins and thus, mastered how to imitate other people's calligraphy style." "So, you can copy anyone's handwriting?" Jing Shao excitedly gripped his hand, knowing that he could imitate handwriting, then he could forge letters. The usefulness of this on the battlefield was too great. As long as the calligraphy is not too strange, then I can. Handing over a bowl of soup, Mu Hanzhong couldn't understand why he regarded this kind of thing as something so important. Jing Shao was silent for a moment, then said slowly, "Jun Qing, you really are a rare treasure. Is this ability really that remarkable?" Mu Hanzhong smiled. As far as he knew, copying calligraphy and calculating accounts were something that many scholars disdained as something beneath them. "I've just learned these things arbitrarily. My teacher wouldn't let me take the Metropolitan Imperial examination that year after I passed the provincial level exam." When he reached to this subject, the vigor in his eyes couldn't help but dim. When he was 17, he had already passed the provincial level of the imperial exam, but his teacher felt that he was not yet mature enough and made him wait for another 3 years to take the next exam. Unexpectedly, that 3 years had turned into forever. Seeing that he was feeling sad, Jing Shao did not know how to comfort him and could only change the subject. "Tomorrow, don't have them prepare breakfast. I'll take you to Wei restaurant to eat. Xiao Yuan and his wife are both very interesting." The next day, once Jing Shao got to Wei restaurant, he immediately regretted it. That was because as soon as his wife and Zhou Jin was introduced, it was like they had known each other all along. They extensively talked about setting up business, and boss Zhou, who was wearing a robe of emerald green, also cordially invited Mu Hanzhong to participate in the monthly male wives gathering. He and the similarly snubbed Xiao Yuan could only wordlessly eat wontons together on the side. ******. In the blink of an eye, the third of the 4th month came. The temple fair in the south of the city was unusually bustling with noise and excitement. There were people who set out stalls, sold art and various other skilled crafts, fortune tellers, monkey trainers, and a numerous number of people were gathered together, all bustling around. Jing Shao pulled his wife back and forth with him in the crowd. The weather in the 4th month was already beginning to get warm, and the couple wore matching sapphire blue-colored, light silk clothing. Jing Shao had fastened a pair of precious stone-inlaid silver wrist guards on his wrists, while Mu Hanzhong had a wide-sleeved gauze shawl on top. The equally handsome couple were rather eye-catching to the crowd. On the side of the road, it was full of people selling snacks and little fun items. Jing Shao bought some croquettes. These croquettes were made of flour, tofu, and bean sprouts rolled up into balls and were then fried in a pot of oil until they turned golden yellow, and then was spread with a layer of soy paste. They looked extremely enticing. Poked onto a bamboo skewer, one was sent to the side of his wife's mouth. Mu Hanzhong frowned. Eating things on the road was unbecoming of noblemen, as it was against proper decorum. However, he didn't want to brush away his husband's good intentions. He glanced left and right, then rapidly opened his mouth to bite the croquette off. The fragrant and crispy ball, accompanied with the bright and savory sauce, was unexpectedly and extraordinarily delicious. The corner of Mu Hanzhong's mouth couldn't help but turn up. This series of expressions naturally landed in Jing Shao's eyes. He was just thinking of teasing him with a couple of sentences, when suddenly from the corner of his eyes a familiar-looking figure flashed by. Upon raising his head, he suddenly saw a figure wearing pink-colored female robes hiding further in the crowd. The side view of the face that had flashed by caused him to be very shocked. He couldn't help but throw the croquettes in his hands away, then he turned around and gave chase. "Xiao Xiao!" Mu Hanzhong looked as he loosened his own hand and watched Jing Shao left to chase after a pink-robed maiden whom he soon lost sight of within the crowd. "Oh, the prince consort can actually go out without bringing imperial guards." A familiar voice sounded from his back. Mu Hanzhong frowned. Upon hearing this frivolous and annoying voice, he knew that it was his cousin Mu Yangwen. "Younger brother has also come to visit the temple fair. Why are you alone?" As he expected, when he turned his head to look, he found his elder brother Mu Lingbao, who was with his two cousins, Mu Yangwen and Mu Huafeng. ****. Jing Shao hadn't chased far and he already could not find a trace of that person. "Your Highness, who were you looking for?" The imperial guards hidden in the crowd moved closer and asked him. "You two go look for a person wearing pink robes, a woman with a cinnabar mole between her eyebrows and should be called Ruo Yi." Pointing at the two imperial guards to go search, only then did Jing Shao remembered that he had abandoned Jun Qing and quickly ran back. There were so many people at the temple fair and his Jun Qing was that good looking. It would be terrible if he ran into a leche or a licentious woman. Sure enough, by the time he had run back to where he had left his wife, he saw three men circling around Mu Hanjiang. With their backs to him, he couldn't see exactly what they were doing. However, based on his wife's expression and his tightly pursing lips, it was clear that he was angry. Jing Shao was immediately filled with fury. As he walked over, he grabbed the man who was currently speaking by the collar and he gave him a punch right on the eye. Then he kicked each of the two men on the side, causing them to topple onto the ground. Mu Hanjiang's eyes widened with his mouth half open, then he was gathered into Jing Shao's arms who asked, "Jun Qing, are you all right?" "Xiao Xiao, they." Mu Hanjiang looked at the three people who had fallen on the ground, the corner of his mouth was slightly twitching. "What are you doing? My prince consort was being harassed and yet none of you came out." Jing Shao scolded the two imperial guards behind him, then he lowered his head to look at the three lecheers who had fallen onto the ground. Two of them were covering their abdomens and looked somewhat familiar, and the one who got a black eye was crawling up. He looked very much like his wife's elder brother, Mu Lingbao. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 1, Planning Ahead. Chapter 24, Ruo Yi. Their stroll ended a lot earlier than planned, as they had run into Mu Lingbao and his companions. On the way back, Mu Hanjiang sat on horseback thinking about how those three people had clearly been hurt yet still had to put on apologetic smiles. He couldn't help but want to laugh. When he lowered his head, Jing Shao saw that the person within his arms was pursing his lips, trying so hard not to laugh. He decided that in the future he would find more opportunities to beat those three up well. During that year when Mu Lingbao had pushed his younger brother into the icy pond, those two cousins were also there. He would wait until the middle of winter and he would have those people thrown into an icy river to steep there for a while. The summer villa of Prince Cheng was in the eastern part of the capital, and that piece of desolate forest that the Marquis of Beiwei gave to Mu Hanjiang as a dowry was in the eastern part as well. Riding Xiao He there was not putting them out of the way. In front of them were nothing but scattered rocks and wildly growing trees. Mu Hanjiang turned his head to look at Jing Shao, who seemed to be deep in thought. Was he still thinking of that maiden in pink robes? Thinking again on how he reacted at that time, the corner of his mouth that had been turned up slowly became a straight line. "Xiao Xiao." "Yes." Jing Shao snapped out of it and lowered his head to look at his wife. "Who was that girl?" The words that he wanted to ask reached his mouth yet were swallowed down again. Mu Hanjiang smoothed his lips and turned his head back to look towards this piece of desolate forest and asked, "What could be planted in these wild forests that can earn money?" "This arid forest." Jing Shao lifted his head to look at this piece of land and laugh. "This kind of forest with lots of rocks and little soil, you can't even ride a horse here or go hunting." As he spoke, Jing Shao suddenly pulled on the reins, stopping to look at this piece of arid forest in front of them and pondered. This piece of forest was at least 300 mu in size, though there was nothing here but rubble and wild growing trees. With these densely packed bushes and wildly growing weeds, it was impossible to see what was actually going on in the middle of it. It was precisely a great place to station troops. Moreover, this place was only 20 li away from the capital. Alas, it was a pity that all the land in the suburbs already had owners. During the time when the Grand Ancestor founded this country, he divided the land around the capital and awarded them to a few dukes and marquises who helped out in establishing the country. If he openly bought this piece of useless wild forest, it would definitely raise suspicions. Jun Qing, do you know who this forest belongs to? If he obtained this piece of forest, then many things would be easier to accomplish. In the future he would look for a chance to do so even if there was no guarantee, even if he had to spend some effort, Jing Shao would try to obtain this piece of land. Mu Hanzhong lowered his head, then he lightly sighed and said, this piece of forest was actually a portion of the family property that was given to me as a dowry. Jing Shao stared blankly for a moment, then laughed heartily and gave the person in his arms a kiss on the cheek. Jun Qing, you really are my lucky star. At this time, it was Mu Hanzhang's turn to stare blankly. Can I exchange with you 100 mu of fertile land in Shangzi with this piece of desolate forest? Jing Shao lightly kicked the horse's abdomen, letting Xiao He let loose and happily begin to gallop. If you want to use it, then go ahead and use it. Mu Hanzhong felt that Jing Shao was trying to help him resolve the issue of having this piece of useless land. It's just that 100 mu of fertile land in exchange for this kind of thing is absolutely not worth it. It's worth it. This uncultivated forest to me, is worth more than 1,000 mu of fertile lands. Jing Shao lightly laughed and used one hand to tightly hug the person in his arms, then he had Xiao He run even faster. That evening, the 2 imperial guards sent by Jing Shao to find that person had returned. These subordinates are incompetent. The 2 imperial guards knelt down to beg forgiveness. Forget it. Perhaps this prince saw wrongly. Jing Shao waved his hand and let them withdraw. He frowned and contemplated. Today, the woman he saw at the temple fair looked very similar to Ruo Yi. The reason why Jing Shao attached so much importance to this was because this person had a crucial role in pacifying the rebellion in the Third Military Campaign. In the previous life, the first time Jing Shao saw Ruo Yi was during a banquet at the 4th prince's estate. This woman had seemed as if she reached perfection when dancing to the song Butterflies Long for Flowers, which caused her to remain fresh in his memory. To the extent that several years later, when he saw her in the Southeast King's mansion, he recognized her with one glance. She held a deep hatred towards the King of the Southeast, as he had ruthlessly killed civilians. At that time, she came to the capital to submit a petition to the emperor but was intercepted by the 4th prince. After escaping from the 4th prince's residence, she used some unknown method to infiltrate the King of the Southeast's palace, and even became the King of the Southeast's favored concubine. During those years Jing Shao had led the troops to quell the rebellion of the vassal estates against the King of the Southeast, who was indeed lecherous and greedy, but when it came to waging wars, he was no pushover. In the 18th year of the Hongzheng era, an arrow almost claimed his life, something that one of the Southeast King's generals had bestowed. When he thought he had suffered a loss to the Southeast King, news suddenly arrived that the King of the Southeast had died. Moreover, the King of the Southeast had died in the hands of this woman who looked too weak to even stand up to the wind. When Mu Hanzhong came over to call Jing Shao to go take a bath, he saw him with an expression as if he were immersed in memories, and couldn't help but secretly grip his sleeve tightly. Since he had not gotten any information regarding the whereabouts of Ruo Yi, Jing Shao decided to temporarily banish the idea from his thoughts. Because his wife had helped him with copying the books, Jing Shao could be at ease. He exchanged pointers and practiced martial arts with Renfeng and the others. In the evening, he would soak in the hot springs with Jun Qing and drink some wine, and so the days passed joyfully. He finally realized from experience why Mu Lingbao and those 2 would always bully Mu Hanzhong. Having someone do his homework for him felt too good. Originally, they had discussed just staying there for just a couple of days, but after he started living there, he didn't want to go back anymore. ******. On the 9th day of the 4th month, it was the Marquis of Beiwei's birthday. Aside from the longevity painting that Mu Hanzhong had painted himself, Jing Shao also sent some other generous gifts. The Marquis of Beiwei, Mu Jin, had greeted them with much more warmth than the last time. However, with regards to Jing Shao's attempt to draw him over to his side, his response was still as ambiguous as before. Jing Shao did not mind though. He knew what kind of wily old fox the Marquis of Beiwei was. Therefore, his attempts were delivered in quite an aloof manner instead of demanding it. What's surprising was that the fourth Prince Jingyu seemed to be making the attempt as well, as he had also personally come to offer birthday congratulations. Although once Jingyu placed down his present, and after exchanging some greetings with Mujin, he had to leave since he was still forbidden from going out. He specially had his imperial mother beg grace from their imperial father to allow him to be able to go out for half a day. The dukes and marquises' households within the capital often became interrelated through marriage connections. The Marquis of Beiwei and the Count of Yangchang's households, from which the current empress came from, were no exception. The fourth prince requesting for a period of grace to offer birthday congratulations to the Marquis of Beiwei became acceptable in this way. When Mu Hanzhong saw that his father was being more cordial to the fourth prince than with Jing Shao, he felt an icy coldness in his heart. Thus, he made an excuse that Jing Shao was also currently receiving admonishment and therefore shouldn't stay long. Then he pulled his husband to leave. Jun Qing, it's fine. Jing Shao sat in the carriage with his heart feeling very warmed by looking at his cold-faced prince consort. Besides his imperial mother and elder brother, the only other person who got angry on his behalf was just Jun Qing. The fourth prince has reached an age when he should be selecting his princess consort. The legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Beiwei just happened to be eligible for marriage. My father, Mu Hanzhong, could only press his lips at this point. His father clearly knew that Jing Shao and the fourth prince were not on the same faction, and yet he still made these kind of plans. Although doing it like that could completely protect the Marquis of Beiwei's household, but this favoring one and discriminating against the other was really making other people feel bitterly disappointed. Jun Qing, Jing Shao hugged him into his arms as he found his husband so endearing. Being born into an aristocratic family, there are some things that can't be helped. Mu Hanzhong sighed and leaned his soft body against Jing Shao's chest, quietly saying, I know. Nay, the carriage that was rolling along just fine suddenly stopped and the couple inside the carriage suddenly fell forward. Jing Shao quickly hugged the person in his arms tightly, bracing against the floor of the carriage with one hand, preventing them from knocking against anything. Your Highness, please forgive, this servant deserves death. The carriage driver hurriedly spoke, begging for forgiveness. What happened? Only after seeing that the person in his embrace was safe and sound, did Jing Shao inquire. The fourth prince and his imperial guard's horses suddenly stopped. This servant was unable to stop the carriage properly. The carriage driver lifted open half of the hanging curtain to let them see the situation up ahead. Only to see a woman wearing pink robes raising a piece of paper with a petition on it, kneeling in front of a horse where Prince Jingyu, who was wearing a deep yellow robe, was sitting. After hearing the woman say something, he suddenly jumped off his horse and walked towards the horse. Damn it! Jing Shao released the person in his arms and speedily jumped out of the carriage. He rushed in front of Jingyu to get in front of the girl. With one move, he grabbed her by the shoulders and declared, Ruo Yi, I finally found you. You. The girl kneeling on the ground was indeed Ruo Yi. She heard that today was the Marquis of Beiwei's birthday. So, she came bearing the petition and barred the way of a person who looked like they were of the highest status. But why did a person wearing splendid robes suddenly rush out in front and grabbed her? Moreover, he called out her personal name, which frightened her stupid on the spot. Elder brother, do you recognize this woman? Jingyu frowned. Just now she said she wants to present an imperial petition. She's a dancer I saw when I was in the desert. Jing Shao pointed at his own head and said convincingly, she's from a foreign land and not very clear-headed. To not give Ruo Yi a chance to dispute this, Jing Shao used a flat hand to knock her unconscious, then threw her to an imperial guard on the side. Upon hearing this, Jingyu looked Ruo Yi up and down once. He noticed that although this woman appeared rather wan and sallow, her good looks were undeniable. She did appear to be a hard-to-obtain beauty. Thus, contrary to what one might expect, he didn't doubt Jing Shao's words because this woman just then had indeed said that her name was Ruo Yi or something. Some other day I'll send brother an even better one. Jing Shao smiled and patted Jing Yu's shoulder. The two feigned civility and exchanged a couple more pleasantries, then each went on their own way. Jing Shao turned around and exhaled a breath of relief. Then, he had his personal guard send Ruo Yi to his summer villa first. In the afternoon, Mu Hanzhong sat in the study, continuing to help Jing Shao copy the books, but before his eyes appeared incessantly the image of Jing Shao seeing that girl and his expression at that time. The other day, Jing Shao abandoned him in the middle of the street to chase after that woman. Today, the same thing happened again. After eating lunch, he went to see that woman, too. In his heart he felt an ache that felt extremely painful. After snapping out of it, he realized that he had copied the line wrongly, so he could only tear the page out and start copying on a new page. Then putting brush to paper again, he unknowingly actually wrote 3 characters for Shao one after the other. End chapter.